Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be a part of this discussion today. And yeah, I've been a registered dietitian for several years. And I found out that I had endometriosis kind of midway through my career journey. So just actually a few years ago. And a part of my journey was learning about how food can impact symptom management. As a part of my story, I had horrible endo belly, food intolerances, pelvic pain, kind of heavy bleeding, all of the classic symptoms. And as I started digging deeper into it, the different endometriosis diet books out there I found were really restrictive. So I have spent some time working in the eating disorder space, and that was really concerning to me, thinking about um, maybe parents trying to help their teens deal with endometriosis symptoms and putting them on these really restrictive diets. And so that was something that I really saw as a need in our community, and I really wanted to help people as a part of my story as well to find the right endometriosis care and the right diet for endometriosis, because if we're cutting out everything, that's only going to increase our stress levels, not make us feel better. With endometriosis, we have this multidisciplinary approach, and a lot of what we're focusing on is like getting people to relax their bodies and making sure we're well nourished. I think the main message is like there's nothing that's like a magic bullet for any of it. Like we have to look at our lifestyle, we have to look at making sure we're eating enough nutrients, enough of specific foods, and we have to look at individual symptoms. So we have a really large portion of the population that has endometriosis. And so there's going to be some crossover in people who have gluten intolerances from other conditions. So whether that's like celiac disease, people with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome often don't tolerate gluten very well, but gluten and endo are not necessarily the issue. I eat gluten, dairy, and sugar every day, and I live almost pain free. And so I think that just having a blanket information out there that you need to cut gluten and dairy to be symptom free for endo is incorrect for some people. And so we really have to look at what else is going on in your body, what gut symptoms you're having, what your family history looks like, to really address what you need to do to target your symptoms. Yeah, and so we know celiac disease runs in families, and so if you have a parent or a sibling who also has celiac disease, even if you're not presenting with classic symptoms, it could be good to get tested. And if you have celiac disease, yes, you need to avoid gluten and you need to be really careful about cross contamination. If there's no celiac and you're having a lot of food intolerances, making sure you're healing your gut is what I focus on with my patients. So, when we're on a lot of antibiotics and we have chronic inflammation and chronic stress, we start developing all of these food intolerances. And so I often see people coming to me that have cut out gluten and dairy and sugar and eggs, and they're also panicked about nuts and things like that. And the more things that we cut out, the less we're feeding those really good, healthy bacteria. And we start to develop even more food intolerances, and we start to develop skin issues and things like that. And so, if you don't have a medical need to take something out, such as celiac disease or a true allergy, I would say, what can you add to your diet? What good things like fruits and vegetables and color and fiber and probiotic rich foods can you add to help improve your symptoms rather than keep taking things away, because it just becomes more and more restrictive and more stressful and hard to meet your nutrient needs. With what we know with endometriosis pain is when people are getting enough omega-3 fats, that is associated with reduced endo pain. And I see a lot in the American diet that we're not eating enough fatty fish. And so I always like to start with food first. So if you're not getting enough omega-3s, trying to get like 2 servings a week of good fatty fish and trying to get, walnuts and chia seeds and flax seeds in. But if you just hate it, can't access it because you live in a rural area, whatever those reasons are, that might be something to look at. Um, we're also tend to be low in vitamin D in the US. Some people need probiotics, but not everybody needs the same one. And so it's really something that you need to work with a healthcare provider on. And I encourage people to get their labs tested before you start supplementing, because there's things out there that can be toxic in high doses. Even with some multivitamins that are out there, we can get too many B vitamins or too much vitamin D, too much vitamin A. And so, again, it's not a one size fits all. I think the most important thing with any healthcare provider with endometriosis is finding somebody who listens to you and connects with you and wants to understand where you're coming from. I think that food is a really personal relationship. And so having somebody that you can really relate to, so doing those discovery calls and making sure you feel comfortable being vulnerable in that space with them is going to be really helpful because lots of women have disordered eating or food issues, or sometimes with our approaches of trying to get our symptoms better, we can develop bad relationships with food. And so we need to feel safe in that space that we're talking about it. So I would say that's number one is find somebody that you're comfortable with. If you're kind of looking at specialties, looking at people who specialize in irritable bowel syndrome or gut health, um, they are going to have approaches that really work on kind of healing your gut, improving your symptoms, improving pain. There's dietitians who also specialize in heavy periods or holistic nutritionists who also specialize in those things. So people who are looking at kind of women's health or gut health issues is probably going to be the most helpful. And then people who focus on intuitive eating. So the last thing we want to do is keep adding restrictions in. And so having people who are going to help you kind of tune into your body and tune into your symptoms and figure out what works for you and what feels good for you is going to be more helpful than somebody who just hands you a meal plan and says, just eat these things and you're going to feel better. I think if you know kind of your cycle, like you're going to feel really bad in that week leading up to your period or on your period week, kind of leaning into that time that you do feel really well and meal prepping at that time can be really helpful. So maybe in that week after your period where you're feeling vibrant and full of energy and you're cooking for yourself, prep extra and pop it into the freezer. So, like, if you're cutting up some chicken breast, pre-slice it so it's just ready to go and pop it in, or even prepare that whole meal and maybe double it so you have a meal ready to go for the future. Leaning into pre-made foods. I love to do like a rotisserie chicken and a bag salad and a piece of fruit, like very easy, ready to go. You don't have to do a whole lot around it. Soups can be really helpful. So, again, try not to demonize foods. And when you're not feeling well, just making sure you're getting something in and thinking about where you can get kind of quick and easy sources of protein. But for me in my journey and kind of leading up to surgery, trying to just when I was cooking, doubling the recipe and saving it for later, or kind of making sauces and having them ready to go for marinades for the future. That can be really helpful. And just stocking your pantry with things that you know that you'll eat when you're not feeling well. So you have something easy to grab and go. So maybe that's oatmeal. Like just eating something is better than not eating at all when you're not feeling well. So I think that there's a couple of different things with that. When people know that they're going to go into surgery and they're having really horrible gut symptoms, sometimes I will have them do an elimination diet to start with just to get some of that initial pain from bloating down. But we have to remember that elimination diets are a band aid. So that should be kind of under the care of a dietitian or a doctor that's kind of making sure that you're reintroducing things back in later on. But, that prehab approach that is also happening, I think really is important for nutrition as well. So making sure that you're going to surgery really well nourished with protein and vitamin C and zinc and those just kind of base minerals. Having as much good healthy bacteria as you can going in is really important. So making sure you're eating throughout the day, you're getting breakfast in, you're eating protein at every meal is going to really set you up for success for healing after that surgery because we have these small little incisions, but it is really extensive. And I think that's something that people don't realize that, it's not this big leg cut that we have or a big burn or something, but we're still needing protein to help support replenishing those nutrients and vitamin C and zinc and all those vitamins for wound healing internally.